Hey, it's Heidi Rain. Welcome back for another episode of Love, Addiction, and Relationships with me, Heidi Rain. I am so glad you're here. If you're new here, I just want to take a minute and say welcome home. I've dedicated the last 25 years of my life to learning the best and most effective way to help people who are in relationships with difficult people, addicts, alcoholics, substance use disorder people, toxic people, dysfunctional people, people that leave you on a regular basis scratching your head wondering what the hell's going on here. Somebody's so smart as you, how do you feel so crazy? Well, you're in a crazy making relationship. And we've been talking in this series about when you're in a toxic relationship with somebody who's dysfunctional, addicted, narcissistic, what have you, they leave a special kind of imprint on your mind and on your heart. Just like a veteran that goes to war and is in survival mode all the time, they don't really recognize the damage that's been done to them until they actually come home and they realize, oh my God, I have PTSD from this. I have shrapnel, mental, emotional, and physical, sometimes, from being in this situation. And so they want to know, how do I heal? And just like a veteran needs to heal from the trauma that was inflicted when they were in war, you too need to heal from the trauma that was inflicted when you've been a prisoner or a victim in somebody else's internal war and it's gotten all over you. And you have shrapnel. You have battle wounds from dealing with this person. Mental battle wounds, psychological wounds, physical wounds, spiritual wounds, and if you do not address the wounds that were created from this toxic relationship and heal them and know what the hell they are, you will for sure continue to suffer the consequences of those wounds. They'll show up in other relationships that you're having, they'll show up in every other area of your life. And so today, I am here to talk to you in a series I'm doing called Sister Wounds. These are wounds that are created by being in a relationship with a toxic, dysfunctional, addicted, or narcissistic person. So it's a playlist. If you're listening to the podcast, you can find the playlist over at the YouTube channel, Love, Addiction, and Relationships with Heidi Rain. So last week, and I'll link the video here, we talked about the first letter in our acronym of sister wounds, which is self esteem. We talked all about how your self esteem has been wounded. And today we're moving through our acronym to the I, which is identity. Nothing is more lost inside of a relationship with a toxic or dysfunctional person than you. You get lost, don't you? Don't you forget who you are? Don't you lose yourself? I want to help you figure out not only who you've been and who you never need to be again inside of this toxic relationship dynamic, but I want to help you figure out who you really are and who you were meant to be before this thing got a hold of you. Now, whether you're still recovering from something you grew up in that was toxic or dysfunctional, or a relationship you married into, or you're dating somebody, and even if you've escaped, it's just like a veteran. It's just like a veteran that goes into war and comes home and has that PTSD. You have CPTSD, likely, complex post traumatic stress. And that is when you repeatedly are dealing with somebody over and over again who triggers you up and traumatizes you. You're left with a lasting imprint. And this thing shows up as anxiety out of nowhere. You race, you go to sleep at night and you replay all the tapes of all the things that have happened. The phone rings and it sets you into another planet. You're on edge. You feel like a live wire. Things are okay in your life in other areas, but you constantly feel like a gray cloud is following you around. You feel depressed, you feel anxious, you feel sad, you feel neglected. You feel like everybody are caring for everybody else, this toxic person, and nobody's there for you. You feel rejected. You put all this effort into this person, and here they are not choosing you or picking you. You feel abandoned. You feel like people are choosing drugs and alcohol or toxic behaviors over you. Whether you're dealing with any type of substance use disorder, by the way, this could be a person who's addicted to the internet, scrolling. This could be a person who's abandoning you because they're looking for other people all of the time. This is it's not just substances. Substances come in any shape or form, right? Addiction is addiction and habits are habit. And anything that is toxic or dysfunctional doesn't have to be, well, it's not, it's drug addiction or I'm talking about anything that interferes with another human being being able to be physically, psychologically, spiritually, and mentally present, protective, and with it in a relationship with you. And when they're not those things and they're out to lunch and they're not healthy, it'll take you out with them, won't it? So let's go through our identity acronym in the sister acronym today in these wounds and figure out how are we going to get you back. Who were you before you got hooked in and sucked into this nonsense? Who were you before you forgot who you were because you became obsessed with fixing or healing or surviving this addicted person? Well, in order for us to figure out who you really are, we have to look back at who you've been. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you about and to walk you through all the people you've likely been these last however long you've been dealing with this addiction. The first person you've likely been is a therapist. You're with your toxic or addicted person, and they're a shit show, man. They're just raking havoc in your life, creating drama, making life difficult for you and miserable in many ways. And you want them to stop this behavior, right? You're like, what's it going to take for them to just wake up? So you go into therapy mode and you put your therapist hat on. And the morning after a bender or a bad behavior, you wake up in the morning and you look at your addicted partner and you're like, I know exactly what happened. Do you know what happened? Well, I think that you went off and you drank because you got triggered up and you were around your mother and you shouldn't have been around your mother and your mother never loved you the right way. And you have mother wounds and that's why you're an alcoholic. And you spend so much time diagnosing and therapizing your partner. I'm going to ask you a question right now. What else would you or could you be doing if you were not therapizing your broken partner? What the hell could now, by the way, we talked about last week how with our self esteem, we get a lot of self esteem from fixing and therapizing our partners. Now, listen, I'm not even saying being a therapist is a bad thing. I'm not even saying having insight and being able to help people is a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing, especially when you get paid for it. All right, just listen, just hear me out. What if you took all the skills that you have as an insight, a seer, right? The ability to see people's shit and know what it is, and you actually started a coaching practice or got paid for what you did instead of dating it or marrying it. Your longing to help people and figure out their stuff is a real thing for you. But it doesn't have to be in your intimate relationships that you're doing that. Well, I'm a therapist inside of my relationship dynamic. I played that role too. Listen, I was with um beautiful man, I mean, aren't they all, right? Aren't they all underneath beautiful and smart and funny and all these charming and all these wonderful things, except for this one thing about them that they have that you can't seem to help them break free from? And that was me. So I was a therapist and I loved him so much. I just wanted him to pick me over this addictive behavior. So I played therapist every single day of my life. Like, why do you think you message those other women? Well, I'll tell you why, because you can't be content because you have an avoidant attachment style. And here's what you do when you have an avoidant. I'm making myself sick talking about it. And I would spend hours and days therapizing him. And the thing was, he'd be like looking at me like, you're right. You're so smart, man. You figured me out. You got all this. And I'd feel really good about myself until the next time I'd go on the internet and see what website he was on. Or when the phone would ring, or he'd take the phone into the bathroom with him and put it on silent and never know what the hell's going on from one minute to the next. I'm like, but I thought I therapized him. I thought I broke free. I thought I broke through. So playing therapist doesn't work. Imagine with me for a minute that you decided you weren't going to play therapist in your love life with anybody anymore, but you were just going to do it professionally if that's what you did. Then your partner becomes a place like my husband now, for example. He doesn't need a therapist. Thank God. Okay. So I get to be, I'm not a therapist. I'm a mentor. I'm a healer. I'm a teacher. I'm a speaker. Um, but if I was a therapist, okay, and and I was had that role with him. Here's what he does for me, okay? He is a place where I go to get filled up so that I can go into the world and coach and speak and teach and write books and make coaching programs and help people get better. And I would never be able to do the work I do in the world if I was doing it with my husband. Why? I wouldn't have the freaking energy. I wouldn't have the bandwidth to spend all day therapizing my partner and then have the wherewithal to be able to run a business too. How tired are you? Maybe you're not a therapist. Maybe you're a doctor. I help a lot of doctors. But aren't you doing the same thing? You're not a therapist, but you have a patient. So let's pretend you're playing doctor. That's another role that people take on. You spend all of your time or a lot of your time researching online, figuring out how to detox. What is Adderall? What is the effects? How does this work? What do you take this substance with that substance? What is love addiction? What is pornography? How does somebody get, how do, you spend all your time researching. Okay, which is great. And why you're here, okay, you're researching. I'm not faulting you for it. What I'm saying is that you're doing it if when you're doing it all by yourself and you're playing doctor and you're doing the one gathering all the information and you're the one doing all the fixing, what ends up happening is your partner is taking zero responsibility. And also you're a shitty doctor. Not in real life if you're a doctor, but to your partner you are. Why? Because just like Jesus, you cannot be a prophet in your own land. You could be the smart. I'm going to tell you something right now. I work in my coaching practice, in my programs, retreats, and courses with psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, and addiction professionals. I have helped more addiction professionals stop therapizing and helping addicted loved ones, you know, boyfriends and husbands and girlfriends and wives. I can't even tell you. So it's not that even if you're good and you're a great addiction professional or you're a great therapist or you're a great doctor, you cannot be a prophet in your own land. You have to go outside of your family and do that work. You can't do it in it. That's why you watch your family suffer. You watch the people you love suffer so much and you scratch your head. Why don't they just listen to me? So you take on the hat, the doctor hat, you research, you do all the things. Some of us lose our identity because we become a treatment center. We do everything we can do. I've had families detox their loved ones in the back bedroom, become an actual treatment facility, holding on the medication, doling the medication out to their loved one, weaning people off of their medication. Now you're a doctor, a treatment center, and a therapist. You're all three of these things. You know how dangerous that is? Even if you Googled it and YouTubed it, you know how dangerous it is for you to take on the responsibility of helping somebody detox from anything? Alcohol is one of the worst ones in the world, and you need to know this. Detoxing from alcohol, people die. People die detoxing from alcohol because they have seizures. It's very difficult. It's unsafe. It's never, when you look at an alcoholic and you say, just quit drinking for a couple of days, just quit drinking, that is the most unsafe thing in the world. I don't want them to keep drinking, but I want you to say to them, hey, I'm going to drive you to a safe medical detox. I'm going to take you somewhere so you can get well and get better. Hey, I don't want to be a treatment center because I'm not a treatment professional, but you need to go somewhere in order to get treatment. What are some of the other roles that you play? Look, I made a list here. Some of you play the role of dealer. That's scary, but it's true. Some of you drive in your cars to seedy areas, and you put the medicine in your little safe, and you dole it out, and you become the dealer. And you say to me, "Well, Heidi, I'm doing a better job because the real dealer gives them too much, but I give them a little bit." Just, I mean, some of you become detectives and you lose your identity because now you're a private detective. I played that role a lot too, where I would spend hours when I was in my relationship with my love addicted um, partner at the time. I spent hours like a private detective. I would go through and I would pride myself on being an incredible private detective. I would go through the internet. I would find things. I would search phone records. I would put things together. I was like the sleuth, man. I was like the love addiction sleuth. It was like so. But what would happen is like I spent hours looking for evidence. Why? Because I would just be like, if I could just get enough evidence and confront him, then he'll admit he has a problem. If I could just get enough evidence and show him what's going on, then he's gonna like we realize that I know that and the jig is up and every, but the truth is there's never enough evidence because a gaslighter is a gaslighter, a manipulator is a manipulator, a liar is a liar. They're gonna be like, I could be holding the proof. I could print down the website where he would engage in his love addiction and other addictions. Okay. I could print it down and highlight the name of the seedy website on the top of the thing and hand it to him. And he would go, oh, I don't know what that is. That's old. I've never seen that before. I mean, somebody else must have been on my computer. I don't know what the hell. He wasn't. I don't know why I'm having a Southern accent right now, but it's like, I mean, I'm from West Virginia, Pennsylvania originally, so no offense to anybody, but it's like, I don't know what the hell that is. Well, yes, you do. Okay. But haven't you? I've had clients that I've worked with that have literally taken alcohol, wine, the detective. They've gone through the garbage. You're going through the garbage is like the crime scene detective, and you pull out the bottles or the thing, and you go, "Here, what's this?" And they go, "I don't know what the hell that is. I don't know where that came from. The neighbors must have used our trash. I don't know. I've never seen that before. I never seen that before in my life." I mean, it's ridiculous. Even when you have all the evidence, they still lie. So here you are, detective, and your identity, like you're forgetting who you are because just like me, you probably spend freaking hours diving in and trying to find the evidence. What else do you do? A sweeper. Did you ever see these horror flicks? One of my favorite movies of all time is Casino. It's like, crime scenes, crime scene cleaner. What is that called? The cleaner, the sweeper? I don't know. They come in after a murder scene or crime scene and clean it up so that you never know what happened. A lot of us that are in relationships with addicted, toxic people clean up messes all the time, and that's all we do. The whole family blows up. Just the holidays just happened. So maybe there's a big blow up, something nasty went down, and here you are being the sweeper or the cleaner. And how do you do it? You go from person to person, rectify, make sure everybody's okay, hide the mistakes, clean everything up, rejuvenate the finances, get a new car because that one got wrecked, or, do whatever you need to do. I've had families do all kinds of things. And then you lose yourself. Like I'm trying to say here, what ends up happening is we lose ourselves in the process. Let's see, private detective, a sweeper and a cleaner, dealer, a medical professional, halfway house. Oh, when somebody gets out of treatment, you become a halfway house person. So they get out and you're like, did you go to your meeting today? I'll drive you to your meeting. I'll sit outside of your meeting. Did you read your AA book today? Did you go to your study class? You become like you have all these, listen, think for me for a minute about the bandwidth that it takes on your mental, emotional, physical, and financial energy dealing with an addict or an alcoholic in your life, taking on all of these roles. Think about the bandwidth. Now, I know you're listening and you're like, he gets it. He understands because Heidi, tech, ding, ding, ding. I've played all of these roles. Maybe one more you've played as pastor or clergy. You know what I mean? You're like, well, the Lord's going to save you, so you minister to the person all the day long, and you try to take them to church and get their hearts right again. Take a deep breath. In fact, let's take a deep breath. Let's take it. I'm going to close this book of ideas. I'm going to breathe in, take a deep breath, and breathe out. What if you imagined with me for a minute you were going to let it all go? Now, that doesn't mean give up. It doesn't mean give up. It means direct the person that you're in love with or loving, direct them. I just heard you. I just heard you in my ear. In love. What do you think, girl? I'm not in love with anybody. He's an asshole. I get it. Okay. You're not in love anymore. You just don't want them to die. You want to help them. You want to save their life. Well, you're not going to do it because you can't be a prophet in your own land and you're ill equipped. And I hate to tell you, but they have been manipulating and gaslighting you for so freaking long that even if you are the doctor, the therapist, the sober coach, and you're all these things, they're still pulling the wool over your eyes and knowing that no matter what they do, you're going to be loyal to a fault. You're going to be there no matter what. So they continue to fit on all of the things you're doing to take advantage of you, to use you, to abuse you, and you end up in a loop and a cycle of suffering. I want that cycle of suffering to end today. And it starts with a decision that you are taking yourself off the job. You are going to dedicate your life now to figuring out what lights you up. So, what are you going to do? You don't want to give up, right? You don't want to give up on the person. And I get that. Send them to the appropriate place to get well. They can't get well with you. They can't. They cannot. They need to go away. We need a whole new group of people. So it's like the person you love is a diamond in the rough, even. Maybe there's like Heidi, they ain't a diamond, they're a lump of coal. Whatever. Okay. They're a lump of coal. Okay. They're waiting to become a diamond. Great. Perfect. When you have this diamond and you want it to shine and you want it to be what it is, what does it need? It needs a proper setting. So just like when your loved one wants to recover, in order to help that diamond survive, it needs the proper setting. And some diamonds need a lot of prongs. Okay. They don't just need one prong. What if you had a diamond on a ring, you had one prong? You'd be like, this shit's going to fall apart in any minute. So recovery is the same way for your loved one. So let's just talk about like maybe a five-pronged approach or a six-pronged approach or a seven-pronged approach. But Lord knows three prongs and four prongs ain't enough. Okay. We need a lot of prongs. What's a prong? A prong is a qualified therapist outside of yourself. A prong is a qualified doctor, medical professional outside of yourself. A prong is a treatment program, facility, something outside of yourself. A prong is a clergy, a pastor, or a spiritual path outside of yourself. A prong is detective outside of yourself, which is accountability, which is drug and alcohol testing, SoberLink, all these different things. Okay. Things that SoberLink is a way that you can, if you're sharing custody, which you can talk about another time, it's a thing that you can use that somebody has to do breathalyzer tests before they're able to see your children. Look into it. SoberLink. It's an amazing tool. Okay. Not an ad, really a good tool. So you send them off on their prongs and you're like, okay, this diamond in the rough is fully supported. What about me now? Who am I? Well, in order to start to find yourself again, you will never find who you really are if you're still being who you're not meant to be. So, the first step today in finding yourself, my love, is to listen to this again and take a look at who you've been. I want you to ask yourself, who have I been being inside of this relationship with this toxic person? And just do an inventory of all the roles you've been playing. Because you know what? Sometimes you wake up in the morning and you slept, but you don't know why you're still tired. I do. You're playing a million people. Not only are you dealing with all the stress, anxiety, worry, overwhelm that you're dealing with in your private, personal life and your intimate relationships, but you still have a life outside of that. You still have to go to work and deal with people and take care of the kids if you have them and whatever else. And it's too much. It's too much for you. Now, even when I say that, you're probably like, she doesn't, it's not too much for me because I can, there's no prize. There's no prize for bullshit putting up with. Okay. There's no award for look how much shit I can handle. You don't need to do that. I know maybe you grew up in an environment where you put up with a lot, you saw a lot, you overcame a lot. So your barometer for being able to stay in stuff and put up with stuff is high, right? Do you know there's another way to live where joy, bliss, flow, flexibility, and freedom are the name of the game? Where you wake up in the morning and you don't look over at that person that's toxic, dysfunctional, addicted, and think to yourself, well, they're going to dictate my day. I don't know what kind of day I'm going to have until I look at that person and see how they're doing. And then I know, are they doing what? Okay. Are they off the rails? Well, Jelly, I'd love to be able to spend some time with you, but I got a Rick over here and Rick ain't doing well. So I got to deal with Rick today. Fuck that. I mean, it's not your job. It's not who you were meant to be. It's not who you were born to be. And if it is who you were born to be, it ain't with Rick. If my husband tomorrow If I woke up blindsided and found out he had a squirrely addiction, he had a hidden addiction, do you think for 1 minute I would be spending a minute of my time counseling, correcting, or helping him personally? No, I would not. I would not counsel him, advise him. I would send him away from my space so that he could become well. And I would hold the standard of wellness in my house, and he would not be able to be in my house until he was well again. Period. I wouldn't try to get him well in my house. I wouldn't try to, you know how maddening that is. Trying to make somebody better under your roof while they're hurting you. Yes. I'm getting hot. And it's not because I'm wearing a fucking turtleneck. I'm getting hot because I don't want this for you anymore. I don't want this life for you anymore. And I know you don't want it anymore either, but you don't know another way. I'm going to help you with that way. Listen, this isn't a pitch. This is a way of life. I have dedicated my entire life to giving you the tools and resources you need to break free. You can get those resources at HeidiRain.com. Just go over there, hold a hand, take a tour, and see which options are right for you. But listen, the days of you playing therapist, sober coach, treatment center, you've been wounded. And when you stop playing the therapist, just like being in war, okay? When you are that veteran that you're a veteran of somebody else's addiction. When you get out of that war zone and they leave and they go get better and they don't come back until they do, and they've had sustained wellness, then the dust will settle and you'll realize how impacted you've been. And I'll be there. I'll be there to help you. Do you see how there's nothing wrong with helping people? It's just you can't be a prophet in your own land. I still want to help people. I still have a desire to help addicted people. It started off with my father. My father was an alcoholic my whole life, and I started as a little girl trying to help him. And let's just be real. I've lived this my whole life. That's a story for another time, but I spent my whole life trying to save my dad or trying to save people in my life. And here's what you need to know about me and my family. I lost my dad to addiction. I lost my aunt to addiction. I lost an uncle to addiction. I lost another uncle to addiction. I lost another uncle to addiction. I've lost siblings and mourn people while they're still alive. My family dynamic is rampant with addiction and dysfunction. People have died, and I'm freaking good. I am good at helping people with addiction. I'm one of the best in the world, and I couldn't be a prophet in my own land. As much as I wanted to save them and me ministering to them and feeling great about myself and having long talks on the porch with my dad while he's drinking his Miller Lite and we're smoking cigarettes and I'm talking to him about addiction and I'm trying to help him. And he died anyway. And he died because he wasn't held accountable inside of treatment centers and places that could help him long enough where it took root. He would go in, he'd come out, he'd go home, he'd go around. It's a story for another time, but I want you to understand I know the desperation of trying to help the people that you love, but you are not the one. And if you are the one, the only way to be the one is to refer that person out to the right resources. And then you find your own resources because while they're off getting better, you've got to work with your CPTSD, your complex post traumatic stress from living with this addiction for as long as you have. And by the way, how much trauma does it take to create a post traumatic stress? It doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a long time, even though it's consistently being exposed to trauma over and over again. You've been impacted, and these are the wounds. I want to help you heal. My love, you deserve to figure out who you are. When you were a little girl in the world and you had all these ideas about your happily ever after and the relationship that you were going to have, it was with a partner who was firing on all cylinders so that you could go be who you wanted to be in the world. So that you could go be a doctor, you could go be a coach, you could go be a speaker, you could go be a healer. You wanted those things, but where you're doing it right now inside of your intimate relationship is the wrong freaking place. Okay? Not the wrong move, but the wrong place. Let's work that out once and for all. Okay? I love you. I know this has been helpful because this is the same stuff I told myself when I was, going through my own grieving process and figuring out my own identity after dealing with all of this. And so I know what's on the other side of this for you. Freedom and joy and love and partnership and the things that you've always wanted, but don't yet quite know how to have. I can help you. Go over to HeidiRain.com and check out everything I have to support you. And I will see you in our third installment of the Sister Wounds, where next time we will talk about your sexuality and wounds that arise from being in an intimate relationship with somebody where you're constantly having to be in the relationship and have an intimate sexual dynamic with somebody who's not home and how that leaves a mark. You don't want to miss that one. All right. I love you. Take excellent care, and I'll see you next week. Bye, friend.